Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome, no. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to our very first ever Winesday. And what is Winesday? Well, currently it's Friday, and it looks like it's midnight outside, but it's only like 6. I hate this time of year for that. But Winesday is going to be a series on my channel that I'm doing now that I thought would be fun, because I've seen a lot of people do these story time videos lately, and they are hilarious, some of them, and some of them are just really interesting, and they usually get a lot of like feedback and stuff, and people seem to like story time videos. So I thought, why not tell you some of my stories, and why not tell you over a glass of wine? So I'm not going to do it every Wednesday though, just because, you know. And I have an announcement. I have no idea where my good eyelash curler is. Like, I have this box full of crappy eyelash curlers. Not all of them are crappy, but it's a different video. But I can't find my eyelash curler. It's the Tweezerman one, and I have no idea where it is. It's kind of upsetting. But anyway, so tonight we are drinking, today, whatever. Go get a glass of wine yourself and sit down. It's going to be a little bit of a story. So, we are drinking the Free Range Red Sweet and Juicy from Rex Goliath. And it's missing some because a couple of weeks ago I tried to film this video and my camera died or something. And yeah, that's what happened. My camera died, so. But I got this. Isn't this cool? I like it. It's pretty neat. Yep. Plastic wine glass. Here we go. Alright, so today, also with Winesday, I'm not always going to be drinking wine. It's just going to be some form of adult beverage. Tonight it's wine because it's Winesday. It's our first Winesday, so why not? Was that too cheesy? Why don't I have cheese? Anyway, also Winesday, I figured, you know, I can complain about things, you know, if I wanted to tell you about my worst job I've ever had, or the worst boss I've ever had, or, you know, which is what we have tonight, which is the worst boss I've ever had, because this was not the worst job I've ever had. So, tonight, let's just start this off with this. So, take a moment, pause the video, go get yourself something to drink. If you don't drink, I mean, you can even drink tea, coffee, water, whatever, your lunch, doesn't matter, go get something. And come back and cheers. Okay, now, this is all about, I have this list I wrote because there's a lot of things about the worst boss I've ever had that I have to say, and there's a timeline that goes along with it, so I just needed to kind of make the timeline. So this is when I worked at a Payless shoe store, and we are renaming this chick Danielle. I wrote it down like a week ago. I just couldn't remember her name. So, when I started working at Payless, it was like February of 2012. I started working there, and the store I worked at, or hired at, had the assistant manager and then another employee who worked there. And then that was it. And then there was like, it was kind of a combined store, so the employees there could go over to a different store and work there and like just switch back and forth, but not all of them could, because, you know, every store is just a little bit different, so you have to be specifically trained to the stores. Anyway, so what happened was I got hired because they needed some help, because the manager, I dropped my list, the manager that they had had a lot of health issues. So she was actually out of not working. Like, she was on a ton of oxygen or something and like physically could not come into work. So, I mean, they had been calling her and like, oh, how do we do this? How do we do this? Because everybody, you have to have one employee other than the manager who knows how to close. So they knew how to close, the 2 girls I worked with. And then the people at the other store also knew how to close. So it's not like, you know, we couldn't do our jobs or anything. It was just you didn't have a manager. So we didn't have a manager when I started, which was kind of weird, and we were getting a temporary manager, and the temporary manager was Danielle. And let me just say that she was a two-faced bitch, like, straight up. She came in, she was super, super nice. She was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be great, I'm gonna like make this store better, oh, this store is a shambles. It's like, well, we haven't had a manager. I think I worked there for maybe 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks before I got switched stores and had to go work with Danielle. So I started out at the one store that only had 2 employees, and it was a very, very small store. It only had like 3 aisles, I think. And they didn't have a very big selection because it was in a shopping center that was kind of not as great anymore and kind of just shutting down, and that was one of the only things that was keeping it going. But anyway, so I worked there, and then after Danielle came in, I hadn't really worked with her yet. I only met her once when she came in just to introduce herself, and then she was working mainly at the other store, which was bigger and busier and made more money. And so she came over and said hi and everything, and then probably a couple days after that, before it hit the 2-week mark, one of the girls quit. I had never met that girl. There was 4 girls at the other store with no manager, because our manager had the 2 stores. So one girl quit. I don't know why she quit, whatever. And she couldn't come in because it was, the other girl couldn't come in because it was snowing. And the other 2 girls couldn't come in because it was snowing, because one of them, actually I think both of them didn't have cars and their boyfriends drove them or whatever. I don't know. But they couldn't come in because it was snowing, and I lived like within walking distance of the second Payless. So she calls me up and she's like, hey, can you come in and work? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll use the extra hours, since I wasn't getting very many hours anyway. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll absolutely come in and work, because nobody else could. So I get there, and when I got there, the second employee that I hadn't met calls and said she just straight up like, I don't deserve your shit, and I quit right now, and that was it. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird, because I thought Danielle was pretty nice and funny, and I got along with her, so, you know, in the hour that I worked there. But it was snowing, and it was pretty. I got to just do shipment, and it was great, and it was one of my dream jobs, working at Payless, because, I mean, hello, shoes and purses, yes. But I started working at the other store mainly because it was closer, it was busier, they could use me more. And so Danielle put me over there, and I started working with the other 2 girls there, and they didn't like her at all. They loved their old manager. Like, she was amazing. I'd never met her. I met her probably once before when I went in there myself to buy shoes, but that was it. Wine break. But she wanted to, you know, just get our store into tip-top shape, and it would just be great and wonderful and everything. So she came in and she started implementing new rules and saying that everything we were doing was wrong, and she was telling us completely different ways of doing things, and told us that she was writing us up for random things that were just like off the wall. She, like I said, she was super nice at first, and then one of the girls I worked with, her boyfriend was also her fiance. He was in the Navy or the Marines or something, and she was planning on going and living with him anyway, but she was like, you know what, I cannot take this chick. So let's see here. What did she do at the beginning? So she wasn't a boss. She came in, super nice. Yeah, okay, so that girl was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I quit. I'm gonna go move in this other state and live with him, and it's gonna be great. So she did that. And then about a week later, our manager, was that probably like 6 weeks later, the other girl, it was just me and her, we'll say her name is Brittany. So it's me and Brittany and Danielle. So Danielle, it was like 6 weeks later, she was going to go out to visit her son who lived in like Nebraska or something for the weekend. So she was going to leave like Wednesday, I think, and then she was supposed to come back to work on Monday, and then that was it. So me and Brittany were holding on the fort. We had it like just planned out. We did it. We were doing good. We, you know, had answered the phones, made the sales, whatever. And on Saturday, we were extremely busy, and she called to check in and was like super pissed because we didn't answer the phone right away. And then she was pissed because, well, she came back on Monday, and like it was her day off, and we're like, oh, hey, what are you doing here on your day off? And she's like, oh, I just wanted to talk to you guys and see how the weekend went and blah 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 blah. So Brittany, you get the front, Marcy, come in the back with me. And I'm like, okay. So I walk into the back room with her where we had our shipment and everything, and she just like reamed me a new butthole. Like, she started asking me why we didn't answer the phone soon enough and why we didn't clean the store well enough. I'm like, Saturday night, we were so busy. We had no time to do anything. We were just like, go, 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 go. And then we only had 15 minutes from the time we closed to get out, so we didn't have overtime or anything. And it's like, seriously? And she's like, oh, you guys weren't busy on Saturday. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I came home early and I drove by. I'm like, oh, really? When? Because we were busy all afternoon because Brittany held down the fort in the mornings because I had school. But Saturday I didn't have school. I don't know. Whatever. So it was ridiculous that she even said that, and it was completely and totally untrue. And I was trying so hard to not cry because she was just screaming at me, and I didn't actually do anything wrong, and neither did Brittany. Like, we were just there doing our jobs, doing the best we could with a temporary manager who is a psycho bitch. So she like flipped out, and I was just standing there, and I probably looked super pissed off because I have resting bitch face as it is, and I was trying really hard not to cry, so I probably just had that kind of like face. And so then I walked back out and I was like, oh my god, Brittany, she just like totally like screamed at me and she wants you to go back there now, so be prepared. And Brittany went back there, and Danielle pretty much said the same things to her and told, like, it was worse for her, but she ended up actually crying. And she's like, yeah, Marcy was just sitting here looking all pissed off at me. And I'm like, I was trying not to cry, but she like bitched us out, and then she walked around the store and cleaned up some stuff and talked to some customers, and then she left, and she's like, oh, by the way, I got you guys some M&Ms, here you go. And Brittany's like, why would you come in here and scream at us and then give us some M&Ms? I'm like, well, that's the cycle of abuse. So, and that night she was just done with it. Like, she was completely done. She was like, I'm not doing this anymore. So she wrote her a note, because we usually like write notes to the opener, like, oh yeah, this happened last night or whatever. So she's like, yeah, Danielle, I can't work here anymore, because she had already given her 2 weeks at that point, because she was gonna go work at a different job because she was so sick of it. And I didn't really have any other options at that point, because that was the second job I had ever had. So I didn't really want to quit it, because it was like almost a miracle that I even got that job. And so I didn't want to quit it and try to have to go find another job and make money elsewhere. So I was gonna stay and just kind of wait it out, because we were supposed to be getting a permanent manager, because our original one wasn't coming back. So we had our new district manager come in while she was there. So Brittany quit, wrote her a note, said I quit, and Danielle was so mad at me for that. Like, she was like, oh yeah, are you gonna quit too? Or like, I'm gonna give you this chance right now, you can walk. I'm like, I'm gonna stay here, like, I'm not gonna quit. And she's like, okay, so we're much better off now, blah blah blah. And we hired new people, and those new people were extremely young, and one of them got to the point where she started like bossing me around, and it just really pissed me off. And we had annoying people had to come down from a different store that was like higher up, and then I had to go to a Brighton store, which was like 45 minutes away, and that store was terrible. But I had to do all this stuff, and she hired these 2 new people, and they were terrible. I mean, one of them was really nice, but the other one was just kind of a bitch, and thought she was like, you know, just the hottest thing ever, and she really wasn't. But she really annoyed me. Both of them did, actually. So there was one night, well, before this, we had our new district manager come in after we hired the new people, because she was moving from Kansas to here, so we got to talk to her and everything. And I went to like because you have to go to these classes, so I went to this class, and she was there, and it was me and like 4 other new girls who were trying to move up to like, because I was already a key holder, so I was trying to like move up to like whatever's under assistant manager. And so that was still while Danielle was there. And then I filed a complaint with my district manager because it was unreal. Like, I called and left her messages, because she was like, oh yeah, you can call me if you ever need anything, blah 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 blah. And so she was in Kansas and didn't answer the text messages or the phone calls, and I was like, you know, I don't want to go back to work, because after what had happened, I was still with my ex at this point. And there was one night, it was a Sunday night, and Sunday nights we closed at 8:30. Every other night it was 9:30, like Monday through Saturday. So on Sundays we closed at 8:30, and she was like, nope, this place isn't spotless yet. Like, it was, and she just freaked out and was like, nope, you're not staying, you're not leaving until we get this done. And my ex was outside, like, sitting in the car waiting, and she's like, yeah, you have to tell him to wait, and he actually called to find out why, like he called our store to find out why I hadn't come out yet, how long it was going to be, and she answered it, and she's like, yeah, Marcy's still cleaning right now, so it's going to be a while. And he's like, are you serious? And like, she just hung up on him. And so I had to be there until 9:30, and it was like unreal. And he actually left, I think, and went to Target because he was like, I'm not going to sit out here for another hour. And I didn't blame him. But, I mean, it was kind of bullshit, but it's just whatever. That's a different story. So what happened that night, it pissed me off because our time cards were due on Sunday or Monday morning, and she didn't work that Monday morning, so we had to submit them, and she didn't give me the extra hour. And so I was like just crazy pissed off. So we started like emailing just complaints as employees to Payless Corporation, and they got back to us, and she finally called back because we had a question about, I had a question if you could wear sandals. Like, I know you couldn't wear flip-flops in the dress code, but could you wear like a pair of our strappy sandals? And she's like, oh yeah, that's fine. And so then, you know, Danielle's sitting there watching this conversation because I think she knew something was up, and she's like, oh, what'd she say? What'd she say? I'm like, oh, she said, yeah, we can wear sandals. She's like, oh, that's cool, because I didn't know. I'm like, oh, yeah. And so then she starts talking to me about the complaint that I filed, and I'm like, oh my God, why are you sitting right here, Danielle? So I had to walk to the back, and she had to take the front of the store, and she wasn't very happy about it, and she knew something was up, I think, but she told me she was getting switched stores, and it wasn't necessarily because of that, but because she was a temp manager. So she got moved to a mall, and our new manager came in, and I was off one day, and she like nothing was right in our store. She like made up her own rules entirely, and so my new manager was like freaking out, and she was so stressed out for whatever reason anyway. So she came in one day, Danielle came in while my new manager was there, and she's like, oh yeah, I see you're cleaning up the mess I made. Yeah, good job. And like, it just made her cry, and I mean, it was terrible. Like, she was such a bitch. And so she switched stores, and it was a lot better. Our new manager was great, but then these other little girls kind of just started taking over, and it was like, what? And that was rather annoying. But I just wasn't really feeling it anymore because it was just, I had been through too much. And another thing that she did was like, she would freak out and be really mad if you didn't, because you have to ask for people's phone numbers and then their address and their email address, and if you don't get a certain amount, then you get like dinged on points, and you can get fired if you don't have that, like if you don't get enough phone numbers. So when people would say no, I would put in my dad's phone number, and I got fired for that. So don't ever do that. If you're working somewhere that way, just put in the specific phone number that you're supposed to put in. 000000000, yeah, whatever. So that was just really annoying, but I was glad to be out of there at that point because I was just done. Like, it was just, she was just crazy, and she wouldn't stop. Like, she would talk shit about like me to Brittany, and she would talk shit about Brittany to me, and it was like, and when we would talk to each other about it. So it was just super annoying, and she was just super crazy. Like, she was so bipolar, it was annoying. And she would pick who she was nice to on the days, like, just depending. Like, oh yeah, you're so nice, like, oh, you go do this. You're gonna stay up here with me and we're gonna talk, you go do this. And then the next day it was like, oh, you go do this. It was just, I love your dress. Like, it was just so annoying, and she was just a terrible, terrible boss. And I actually saw her in the mall one day, and I almost threw up. So, yeah. Like, she just caused a lot of anxiety. Like, it was terrible. It was not fun. So, at least I got to work in my dream job. One good thing that came out of it, and I got some cute accessories that I don't even know if I have anymore, but yes. So, that was our first Winesday, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I did not drink all of my wine. What is this? How much more minutes do I have? I don't have my contacts in, so I'm like, what? I can't see. 9 minutes. Alright, I can talk to you for 9 more minutes. I don't need to talk to you for 9 more minutes. This video is long enough as it is. So I'm going to drink this, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to y'all later.